So we seem to be fighting two different wars at the same time. There's the overnight strike war, and then there's the frontline war, and we're going to talk about both in this video. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. It is Monday, November 3rd, 2025. If you want to keep up to date, please consider subscribing. So let's start here by talking about what was being hit. Last night, I saw this just before going to sleep. This is drone bombers update map of where Ukrainian drones were going to be striking, and it was a lot less than the night before. Nevertheless, they had a lot of good hits. Let's go back one day first and look at what happened in the previous night strike in Tuapse. Satellite images reveal the aftermath of the recent strike on Tuapse port. At least two hits targeted the Transneft pipeline at the loading terminal, with visible damage to an oil tanker, which handles this export terminal handles up to 7 million tons of oil annually. That does not mean that 7 million tons is now out of business. But here's what was hit. Small vessel Nord destroyed. I'm not sure that we even saw that yesterday. Fire on the tanker Pollux. We talked about that one. 40,000 tons of petroleum products were on board. Fire on the tanker of Chai from Liberia, and there are 56,000 tons of petroleum products on board. So again, we don't know if that's completely destroyed or if the fire was put out or whatever. This is what was happening yesterday, though. Fire on the tanker Coastbuster, we didn't even talk about. Fire on the tanker Saturn, Russia, no cargo, and no cargo on Coastbuster either. Damage to pier equipment and fuel transport pipeline. I don't know that the fire on these was anything significant, but it was larger than we thought it was. Okay, let's look at the next thing. Russian Telegram channels report an attack on oil refinery in Saratov, Russia last night. Okay, this is new. This is just last night. Saratov refinery processes Urals crude oil and raw materials from the Saratov and Orenburg fields. Its capacity is up to 7 million tons of oil per year. And again, that's not saying that 7 million tons is now offline. It's not. The plant produces more than 20 types of products: gasoline, diesel fuel, fuel oil, vacuum, gas oil, bitumen, technical sulfur, and so on. A drone targeted a crude distillation unit, but there was also this, and I haven't seen much of this before. One was blocked by anti-Ukrainian drone net. So they do have these weird coat cage drone net kind of things over these refineries now, and apparently one worked. I've not seen that before. It's probably happened before where a drone was caught on this, but this was particularly interesting. Saratov refinery, there are hits in the fire area of the ELOU ATV or AVT-6 technological unit. Also in temporarily occupied Luhansk, this is a whole different thing. Logistics facilities on invaders were hit. A warehouse of material and technical resources, mobile fuel and lubricant stock in Dozhavnask. Okay, on the night of November, if you're wondering why I'm laughing, I'm laughing at my own pronunciation. I try, but there's a learning curve here, like everything else. On the night of November 3rd, Special Operations Forces of Ukraine carried out strikes with FPV or FP1 and FP2 guided strike drones on Russian military logistics facilities. SOV units hit a Russian fuel train. Another unit destroyed Russian logistics and supply warehouse, and you're seeing that here. Again, all other things being equal, it was a very good night for Ukraine as far as the overnight drone war. Warriors from Ukraine's defense intelligence attacked high-value components from the Russian air defense system in Russian-occupied Crimea. The strike carried out Russian command post of an S-400 Triumph anti-aircraft missile division that was in a combat position. The multifunctional radar 92N6E and the autonomous power supply equipment for the S-400 command post were all destroyed. So that alone would have made a good day, let alone all the other strikes. So it's doing great for you. I mean, Ukraine had a great night. Ukraine carried out precision night strikes on Russian logistics hubs using FP2 attack drones. These FP2 attack drones have a 105 kilogram warhead and a range of 200 kilometers. The cost of one is nearly $55,000 compared to other missiles and things along these lines. That is very, very cheap. Okay, during the week from well, this past calendar week, unmanned systems forces struck 5,994 unique enemy targets, and they list out what these targets are: like 2,011 enemy personnel, 1,143 of whom were eliminated, and it goes down the list. So, okay, that's what Ukraine was doing to Russia. What was Russia doing last night? Russia launched an aerial attack, 3 Kinzhal missiles, 4 Iskander MS, 5 S-300, S-400, and 138 drones, around 80 of them Shaheds. Ukraine's air defense shot down or jammed 116 targets, including 1 Kinzhal and 115 drones. So out of the 12 missiles fired, 1 was shot down. So that means that there's going to be some damage, right? Here is Yulia Servanenko explaining what the damage was. In Dnipro, missiles targeted civilian infrastructure. In Nikopol, the Russians shelled the city with artillery and FPV drones. Belgorod, 4 people were injured over the past day. In Mykolaiv, Russian drones struck a large supermarket. Okay. The attack disrupted energy infrastructure, cutting power to 12 settlements in Mykolaiv as well. Sumy region, Russians struck a residential neighborhood with UAVs, deliberate T. Now, somebody commented, you should say, instead of saying T, you should say, and you understand what I say, T. I say this, and it's because if I'm pronouncing that, sometimes it gets caught up in on YouTube where they don't release the video right away, and news needs to be out immediately. They said maybe Führerism. I don't know if that's going to work any better. Tell me what you think in the comments. 52-year-old man was killed. Among the 5 injured, 2 small children aged 2 and 5. This is outright Führerism. They will pay for everything, she concludes. Okay, the number of victims of yesterday's Russian attack on the Samara district in the Dnipropetrovsk region has risen to 4. Russians killed 2 children, boys aged 11 and 14, according to local authorities. As far as the Russians are concerned, this kind of thing is a good hit. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive the Ukrainians out and trying to genocide. Okay, 1,561 missiles launched by Russians in 2025. And last month was the peak of that, with 269 launched. 269 missiles in 1 month. It's just crazy. Let's look on the battlefield. 1,160 Russian casualties, 5 tanks, 6 armored fighting vehicles, 45 artillery systems, 121 vehicles and fuel tanks. And of course, the place that we want to look at most closely is Pokrovsk. Everything else is somewhat secondary. Maybe Kupiansk is something that we want to pay attention to, but Pokrovsk, that's where the action is. In the Pokrovsk direction, there were 49 assaults. 49 assaults, and there was 1,160. That's about right. It's about center for what the number of assaults are, but it's hard to measure because now they're like into very close quarters kind of fighting now. Putin has reportedly ordered the full capture of Donetsk region by the end of February, according to RBC Ukraine. Regarding Pokrovsk, up to 1,000 Russian troops are in the city, where the rail splits the zone of control. Okay, so let's talk about this February thing. Now, he's ordered the full control of the entire Donetsk multiple times before. I don't know if this is talking about last February, because that is quite possible, or we're talking about the full of this February, which is also quite possible, and he'll just keep resetting until he keeps resetting. Okay, the south is already marked as a gray zone under the Russian control. There's no encirclement yet. Okay, this is null reports, which is a factual something. No encirclement yet. Technically, that's true, but there's drone coverage for the part of the encirclement that isn't encircled, and so that is feeling very encircled. But Russian forces are pushing into central, western, and northern areas with close quarters fighting. Okay, Russian forces are throwing everything that they have at Pokrovsk, turning the city into a chaotic gray zone, according to Ukraine's forces. Moscow wants Pokrovsk as a political symbol to pressure the West into forcing Kyiv to surrender the East. Okay, I think that that's right. I think that what's going to happen is, and again, I was worried that Pokrovsk was going to fall last August. July, you could see like some of the writing on the wall, and then I was like, in August, I'm like, oh, when can General Winter get here? And here we are in November, a year plus later, and so if and when, and I think there's going to be a when, I think it's only a matter of time. They seem to be bleeding out the Russians as much as they can along the way as they're trying to capture Pokrovsk and then trying to get out of Dodge. That's my guess. Okay, so if Pokrovsk goes into Russian hands, let's say that it does, you see Putin will very shortly thereafter be wanting to talk to Donald Trump about this so that he can, wave this around and say, see, we just captured this big city and it's all over for the Ukrainians. It's not all over for the Ukrainians. It's a loss and it hurts, but it's not going to be all over. Okay, this was on RT. All attempts to break the encirclement, even by elite troops, have failed. Ukrainians there are simply trapped. And so this is a legitimate video of Russian FPV drones attacking a Ukrainian tank. So you can see, like, as the tank's coming in, or armored vehicle tank, whatever it is, as it's coming in, and the FPV drone is coming at it, or truck at this point, right? Now, this is also the same video, and here's Sergei Sternenko. He's one of the biggest sponsors or fundraisers of Ukrainian stuff, saying this terrible video, but it needs to be seen. This is the road to Pokrovsk under full enemy fire control. What hides behind the dry phase full fire control, exactly what's in the video. Virtually every vehicle heading into the city comes under attack. It's impossible to quickly evacuate the wounded. It's impossible to deliver supplies and ammunition on time. The main losses aren't at the position, but on the road. So understand that what's actually happening here is that their control of what's behind Pokrovsk with FPV drones is causing the problem that they're in right now. Loitering munitions and cargo drones help somewhat, but the situation is critical overall. Right now, we're seeing the same thing that happened in Sutsa, operational encirclement with a buildup over the last logistical routes and constant hammering of our forces in a narrow corridor, excessive losses of personnel. Some of our infantry positions are already behind enemy lines. Okay, so it's bad in Pokrovsk. I mean, if I haven't made that clear, it's bad. Over the month of October, the Russian armed forces occupied a total of 468 kilometers squared, or square kilometers, I'm not sure how you say that, I'm an American, of Ukrainian territory. This means the Russian pace of advance has once again increased in a short trend of diminishing gains in August and September. So it was going down, and then it's gone back up a little bit, but again, it's not like what it was back in last November. Okay, it's about on par with where it has been. Now, with that being said, I don't know that they can keep pushing. Like, they're probably going to take some ground in Pokrovsk, and you're going to see that. But I don't know that they can keep pushing farther. What I mean by that is this: an entire column of Russian BMPs and tanks got stuck in sand and in the mud. Russians attacked the 46th Brigade's positions under cover of fog, under cover of fog, and that's because of FPV drones. If FPV drones can't see, then they're not the threat if the fog is there. But encountered mines and natural obstacles, and the mud will do what mud does, right? That's why things slow down in the winter or in the mud season. Another 9 drones, Supercam and Zala and Molina, were destroyed by Ukrainian defenders in the sky. And then here we have Ukrainian paratrooper recruits trained to counter FPV drones, a top battlefield threat. These high-speed drone strikes in open terrain, trenches, and shelters. Soldiers practice with shotguns on static targets before advancing to live drills to build accuracy in combat. But, trying to shoot down a drone, it's just... that's a tough thing to do, and what I wouldn't recommend what this guy just did. This guy actually grabbed a drone as it was coming at him and threw it to the ground and then disarmed it. I would not recommend doing that. That is a very, very dangerous thing to be doing, but it seemed to work for this guy. But man, that is a 1 in a million kind of catch. Okay, Ukrainian troops are going viral with unusual reward system, eliminating occupiers, earning points, and spend them in military marketplace, just like an online game. In September alone, drone operator teams competing in the Army of Drones bonus system killed or wounded 18,000 Russian troops. Points earned for eliminating Russians can be exchanged for weapons. Special online marketplace called Brave One, basically an Amazon for war, offering 100 types of drones, autonomous vehicles, and other equipment. There are already 400 units in the game. I think this is actually very clever. It's the gamification of the system so that they can get what they need if they can put points up on the board, and they have to verify that the drone actually killed this or killed that or whatever. But gamification in business is a very common thing now. It's the application of game design elements to non-gaming contacts. It uses tactics like points and leaderboards and badges and challenges to drive desired behaviors, ultimately leading to an increase in engagement and loyalty in business. But on the front line, where it's even more important, they can get equipment that they otherwise couldn't get. Okay, I talked about this yesterday, and I want to go back to it because there's a fuller explanation. In Belgorod, residents have started massively stealing electrical generators brought into the city for scrap metal. So in Belgorod, as the lights go out, the people don't want the electric. They want their own scrap metal so that they can sell, so that they can individually profit. So they were cutting power lines and things, or electrical cords and things along these lines, and selling it on their own. Residents of the Belgorod region are cutting cables, stealing batteries from electrical generators that authorities install in case of a blackout. Officials reported at this meeting to the head of the region. The governor called the problem catastrophically large. Like everyone's doing it. I need every facility to be guarded. Where will you put it? Put it on the roof. It just needs to, you just need to act quickly. Winter will start in a week or two, so control it as much as possible. We see that they are starting to steal. There is police. Found a culprit, put them in jail immediately, start restoration. So they have a real problem with that. All right, last couple of things. Before I say, well, let me give my shout out to Rick Lindy. He's an undergrad YouTube member. Thank you, Rick, for your support. Before I finish... Let's just look at this. This is Che Bowes. He's known for being on RT and stuff. He's talking about this Telegraph article that's saying that Ukraine's exodus of young men could be fatal. This just came out recently, and he's saying millions of Ukrainians have fled from Zelensky's corrupt dictatorship. They have no intention of returning to die for him in this doomed war. Whole army of at least 1 million military-aged men is sitting in Poland, Germany, France, and the UK, Ireland, and Italy. Okay, so while there is a problem with recruitment, there's also a problem with recruitment or AWOL or whatever on the other side as well. And Darth Putin's reply to this was, welcome to November, the 45th month of Ukraine being about to run out of men next month. That's right. So put everything in context, folks. I mean, in context, Ukraine's holding, and all Ukraine has to do is hold the front line and destroy the economic power behind Russia with the drone strikes. That's what they're doing with the oil strikes, the drone strikes on oil and that sort of thing. That's their theory of victory. All right, tell me what you thought about this. Put it in the comments below. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.